Over the past 3 years, our Vertical Insights program at Facebook has grown research output by more than 10x. I'm Jeff Lahovich. I lead platforms research within Facebook's global business marketing. And today I'm going to be talking to you about building global research programs from ideas to implementation. We're going to start by looking at what our programs are, who we are, and what is our approach. And then I'm going to take you through a step-by-step guide on how we build out programs at Facebook. We'll leave some time for Q&A. So first of all, who are we? I mentioned the Vertical Insights program. Over the last 10 months, I've been kicking off the Media Insights program at Facebook. The Media Insights program aims at helping brands and businesses and agencies understand the evolving media landscape. If you think back to 20 or 30 years ago, the way that the world is shifting moves a lot more per year than it did back then. And so a lot of brands, marketers have a lot of questions around what is happening in the evolving media landscape, in the digital landscape, and what's changing with Facebook. And we have those questions too. So we conduct large media consumption studies to understand people's behaviors, preferences, attitudes, etc., what it means for brands, and what it means for brands on our platforms. We focus on three key areas or three streams: video, conversations, and media platforms. And although we reach 40 markets globally through the program, we have our focus 10 or 12, and that includes within APAC, Australia, Japan, India, Thailand, and South Korea. So a year ago, when we were kicking off the Media Insights program, we really had to think about, do we need a program? We were running projects, and there's a little bit of a difference, but that difference makes a big deal. They each have their benefits. Projects, by their nature, are a little bit smaller, shorter term, smaller on budget, etc. And so you can work on something now, which may not be relevant in 3 to 6 months. We can work on something now and something different in 3 to 6 months. So as a piece of that, that means that they're faster, they require less input, they have a less of a commitment to continuity. So what I'm researching today may not be what I research next year. And they're more flexible. Programs, on the other hand, are longer term. They're scalable because I can easily add more markets, more streams within the program. They're predictable, so they make planning a bit easier. So right now, I'm sure a lot of people are going through 2021 planning. And if I look back a year, 2 years, 3 years, we spent a lot of time planning for projects, understanding what the challenges are in the markets, etc. We're a bit more predictable now because we know our program, we know what we're going to be working on next year. In fact, through to November, December, and even January, February, March of 2022, we know what we'll be delivering. They're slower to set up. In fact, we've spent a lot of time this year setting up the Media Insights program, but it creates an environment of speed as people start to know and realize what's coming and when, and they can plan towards that rather than looking around for somebody to do some research for them. It builds partnerships with all the people that we're working with and all the teams, and it builds a brand for our team and our program such that people know, and everyone in sales and marketing within Facebook would know what the Vertical Insights program is, what it does, and that helps for the program to deliver more results. So how do we build out the programs? Well, the first step is to make sure we're market oriented. So it's very easy for us to say, what do we want to research? And we have some ideas, and we've been doing a lot of projects over the last few years. And so we know what comes up. And as you're running projects, that could be a good way to start, because you know that in 3 or 6 months' time, you may not be working on the same thing again anyway. But with programs, we need to get it right the first time. So we need to make sure that we're asking everyone who's going to be involved, all our customers, both internal and external, what their needs are, so then we can build the program to suit their needs. Those people, internal and external, are our customers. So it's the sales and marketing science, measurement, creative shop, product teams. It's external, it's agencies, it's client marketers. We need to work out who those markets are, or which markets we're going to be present in, and loop in people from those markets. Yes, so that they're aware of what's coming for their market, but they can help and lean into the program as well. We need people to localize the program, as we'll talk about a little bit later. We need to build our Tiger team. These are the people who are working with us week in, week out on the program to build for the future. So content marketers, educators, the sales teams as well. We have some representatives of those who are quite close to us and are a part of the program and help us to build. We need to work out who needs to be bought into the program. So these are generally the brand managers, the senior leadership, who need to give an okay that yes, this is along the lines of what they need. And of course, we have a RACI where we get everybody involved and work out how they'll be helping. For us, that was, for the Media Insights program, over 100 people globally. We then move on to objectives. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with mission statements. This is one of the iterations of our mission statement on the right-hand side. And I feel like every time I see one of these mission statements, they're really hard to read. I don't get the point of them because it's kind of 6 sentences within one extremely long sentence. I don't like to present them because I feel like I'm just reading off a song sheet. But I find that the importance of the mission statement is in the exercise of building that. So when we came up with this one, we had our program team in a room with a 10-meter long whiteboard. And we spent about 2 or 3 hours pulling together, who is this for? What do they need? Where are they? When do they need it? How are they going to execute on it? What are the types of challenges? What requests have we been seeing coming in? What can we do? What's our budget, etc. From there, we built out our mission, but that helps us to then go into what are our goals? Importantly, what are our non-goals? I see too often, over the course of my career, that non-goals doesn't make it to the list, but I think non-goals are quite important because it's enabling us to be very clear on this is what we're working on, this is not what we're working on. For example, for us, deep dives are something that we'll focus on in 2021. 2020, we're focusing just on these things. If you come with a request that's outside that, that's over here, and we can look at it in the future. And we need to focus on what is our USP. So in Facebook, there are several hundred researchers working on a lot of UX and measurement and other types of research. We need to make sure that this program is delivering something different or over and above what they're already delivering. Throughout that entire process, and then continuing once we've kicked the program off, we need to do research for the research. So a lot of internal research. We start off with, and this is going back a couple of years, one-to-ones where we're continually documenting the challenges that people are coming up with in various markets and various organizations. Middle of last year, we ran a relatively large, for an internal survey, global quantitative research with over 200 people who were telling us their key needs in terms of insights. From there, we found that there were some key media insights needs, and we've gone and clarified those in some smaller circles. We've gone back to a quant where we got very clear on what those 3 streams were and what were the challenges within those. And then we went and held 12 workshops across the globe, across 4 regions, and clarified those areas of interest with the key cross-functional partners. We moved into foundational program setup. So this is enrolling stakeholders into their RACI roles. So yes, we know what we want them to do, but we're making sure that they're committed to that. That includes things like people in each market who are going to check the localization and translations for us. We broke the program down into its smaller components, including projects. We went out and selected vendors for the projects that we needed an external partner for. And then together with them, we built our action plan, our timeline. And of course, we added in some flexibility there. I think that's one thing that we, as one tip, we always see that we need a little bit of extra time baked in. And we then go and we run the workshops and we get ready for survey development. I've left that part out because I can tell that this audience, being researchers, are quite familiar with how workshops work and how we distill that into quantitative surveys in this case. But what I wanted to touch on was more around the localization element. So when you're working across multiple markets, it's important to keep a few things in mind. Firstly, that basic demographics used to define quota cells differ. So age, gender skews, for example, in Japan and Western Europe, we have slightly older audiences. We need to be aware of that. In India, for example, younger audience, when we look at internet population, that is an extreme skew to the younger audience. There's also gender skews. Most places that's 50-50, but in India, again, it's more of a male-dominated internet population. And then with educational attainment, income, social class, not only do we need to look at those quotas and how they're filling out, but those questions also differ in different markets. In some cases that may be household income, in others it may be personal income, weekly, monthly, annual, etc. We need to keep in mind that the products and services are not the same in every market. So we've found, for example, that in Japan, a store clerk is somebody who's seen as, at least in the fashion industry, seen as an influencer, a micro-influencer, and sometimes a larger influencer where they can draw people into the store. And then some very specific things like frozen dinners, which may not mean the same thing or may not translate quite well. The competitive sets vary, so as well as products existing and not existing, competitors as well. Within social platforms, that's pretty standard globally, although some markets are heavier for one or the other. Within video platforms, what we found, yes, there are a couple of big names that are present globally, but within each market, there's their own specific video platforms. For example, in Australia, there are 5 or 6 or 7 video platforms that are not present in any other market. And so we need to have, again, our local team helping us localize, understand not just their presence, but what are those platforms? How do they operate? And then there's cultural differences. So asking people to do certain things or what they think of things, or would they recommend this to a friend? It differs in different countries. So the thresholds may be higher, or people may just not want to do that behavior. There's also some survey taking nuances. I think anyone who's run research across APAC will know that Japan and India are the polar opposites in terms of willingness to agree. And we need to keep that in mind when we're building out the survey as well as analyzing the results. When we're building out the survey, if there's an attribute in a list of 10 that we're really interested in understanding how Japanese consumers feel about that, we may want to pull that out into its own Likert scale, for example, to ensure that we can get a good read on where do they sit on that scale, not just that they've kind of not ticked it because they've under-selected on that question. We also make sure that as we're analyzing, maybe we look at top 3 boxes in some markets, and we don't like to compare too much across markets because sometimes those percentages are way off, but the order may be something that's more important. In terms of taking the survey itself, we know most people are moving towards mobile first survey taking, particularly in APAC where people own a smartphone, but maybe not a PC or laptop. We need to keep in mind though that some of those mobiles may be older models and maybe a bit slower. We also need to take into account the local language that they may be speaking and whether English or another language is their first or second or even third language. So again, with India as the example, if you speak Telugu and our options for the survey are in English or Hindi, then someone will likely speak those languages, but it may not be their first language. So again, looking at things like, do we have too much corporate speak or marketing speak that's in that survey, and can we make sure that it's something that people would understand if they're reading that in a second language? We need to keep in mind things like internet speed. So we've recently seen that as we're rolling out surveys across, including some African countries, that it can take up to twice as long for someone to fill out a survey. We need to keep that in mind, that while, yeah, it may be getting a little bit long in a Western market, in a market with a slower internet speed, an older phone, and potentially language barriers, that could take even longer. So we go out and then we field our research. Again, I'm not going to talk too much about fielding because I think that's something that's quite standard, or activation, because activation means different things to different researchers, whether you're in strategy or product or marketing. We're in content marketing, so that's quite different again. But after we've activated, that's where the scale comes. So this is the benefit, and I come full circle now back to why did we run a program? We look at the multi-year approach. We are running now a media insights tracker where we're setting up year one. We're in field at the moment. And what we'll see is that in year 2 and year 3, that's there, it's running. It's much easier, it's much lightweight. We can keep that going. It's going to be fueling insights. It's going to be showing trends. We're also able to add more markets quite easily to that because we've got everything set up. All we need is translations, localizations, and some budget, and people to take care of the marketing element of that as well. We can iterate and learn. So that means both for this, changing slightly the tracker in this example, or learning and going into some deep dives. And then we can scale through things like templates. So we're looking at, for example, mums on media being one of the segments that we look at. Well, once we've built that out, we build out a process where you can take data for any segment. We've got a template for the activation side, and we could turn that into a report for millennials, for heavy TV viewers, for whatever it is that we're really interested in. And we anticipate that over the next few years that's going to scale, and we anticipate that because we've seen that in our sister program, the Vertical Insights program, where in 2017, we ran about 25 part-to-purchase studies globally. That includes, if we ran a study for 5 markets, that would have been 5 of the 25. And the following years, as we set up the program, we moved that to 63 as we started scaling it to more markets, and then 75. And this year we're on track to run over 500 part-to-purchase studies by extending that through multiple countries, as well as through more and more categories and subcategories within those part-to-purchase studies. We've got more than that that's come. So we've got vertical stat packs that are built off external data. We've got internal data dashboards. We're able to quickly pivot and build out some re-emerge studies for COVID. And all of that comes off the scale that we've built through building a program. So that's it for building out a program. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to hear some of the questions that you've got coming up. Thank you for your time.